Hi everybody, welcome to day 2 of Vlogmas 2025. Today is December 2nd, so I am right on schedule. I made it through 2 days. So yesterday I made these blocks and I did some midnight sewing to finish them up. So today we are going to take these blocks, all 8 of them, and this piece of fabric that I pulled out yesterday that I thought went pretty well, that I thought I might need a couple strips, but I had enough. And then this piece of fabric, which is just a solid in the same colorway as everything else. We're going to take these 3 and we are going to make this. So let's get into the sewing room and I'll show you how I did it. So here are my blocks. I got all 8 of them done or finished, whichever way you like to say it. And they are going to work just perfectly. I did work out the problem when I put them together yesterday. I needed half of them to go this way and half of them to go that way. So yes, I did work that out. So this is how they're going to go together, like that. And I'm going to have 2, like one set like that, and then one set like this. And I think I'm going to switch this out for that so that I don't have both of those in the centers next to each other. I think that there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can, well, yeah, there's nothing I can do about it. If I switch this out for one on the bottom, then I still have these 2 next to each other. It's not a big deal. I really don't think in the grand scheme of life it's going to matter. So I'm going to be sewing those together. I did get through all of them. This is what I had left of those strips. So these will go into my scrap bag. And then I've got some little triangles from some of the edges. I had this piece that I dug out of the scraps that I used on a couple of the corners. Just a few of them. And that's what I had left of that one. So that one will go back in the scrap bin. Then I have, so these are all going to go together like this. One for the front, one for the back. Then I have this that I'm going to use for the lining. And I think it's going to be just perfect. Because once I put, yeah, this is going to be just perfect. Because right now it covers them very nicely. Once I put the seams in, it'll be just a little bit smaller. So I've got that. And then I've got this one that I pulled that I actually didn't wind up needing. But I'm going to use this one for the straps. And I think I'm going to put a pocket on the inside. So I'll use this for the straps and a pocket. And that's what I'm going to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go get these together. Okay, so I got these together and I did mix them up a little bit. So I've got these 2 next to each other, which is fine. But then I've got these 2 next to each other. You know what? For this bag, this is not a tragedy. So now I did, up underneath here, I did pull the paper out so that it wouldn't be caught up underneath that seam. And then I've just got to pull all this paper off, which may be a little time consuming. We'll see. I started to tear it off before I did the seam because I thought that'd be easier. But as I was pulling that off, the seams were coming unraveled here at the edge. So I left the paper on. Okay, so I need the lining fabric. Let's measure this. So I need 2 pieces of lining that are 15.5 by 20. By 20.5, 15.5 by 20.5. Okay, so that's going to be my lining. Then I'm just going to cut everything now while I'm cutting. Okay, so for the straps, this is already squared off. For the straps, I need a 6-inch strip. And that'll give me, you know what, I'm going to do 5. I'm going to do a 5-inch strip. Not that way. I need a 5-inch strip. Oh, silly me. I am going to square this up. It's actually pretty square right now. I'm not going to need to square it up. I need a 5-inch strip. That I am going to cut in half. And to be honest with you, I kind of wing the straps every time. You don't want to make them too long, because then if you're carrying the bag in your hand, it drags the ground. I've done that, and what I've done is I've just taken and knotted the top of the strap. Sometimes I put a little batting in the middle there. I'm not going to bother today. Then I need a pocket. I like my pockets in this one. I think I'd like it to be about 8 by 8. So I'm going to cut 2 squares. You know what? Let's make it a big pocket. Let's make it a 9-inch pocket. I'm going to cut 10 inches because if I cut this at 10 inches, then the leftovers can be cut into layer cake squares. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these and I'm going to sew from here all the way around to about here. I'm going to leave the bottom open for turning. See if I do that right. Okay, and I'm going to be right back. Okay, so I sewed around the edges there. Somewhere here I left open. I sewed from here, and from here I left open. So now I'm going to clip these corners very close to the stitching. Be careful you don't cut the stitching. And I did about a 1/2 inch on the seam allowance here. Doesn't have to be anything crazy perfect, but that's what I did, about a 1/2 inch. And then we're going to turn it like this. And I like to get my thumb up in that corner and then pinch it with my finger. And it usually turns them very nicely. And then I don't need a chopstick or the tip of the scissors or, you know, the corner turning tool or any of those things. If you use those, you know, good for you. I find I don't really need them. I usually get pretty good corners this way. And I'm going to go to the ironing board and I'm going to press this. And as I go, I'm going to just work that edge, that seam out to the edge and press it flat like that. I'll just do that as I go. I'll start in one corner and I'll work it around like that. Then, before I come back, I'm going to take, not the open end, the top, and I'm just going to top stitch about 1/4 inch from the edge. And I'll be back when I finish with that. Okay, so here's my pocket. You can see, hopefully, where I top stitched it. This is the bottom part that's open. I just tucked those in and made it straight. And that's going to get sealed up when I put the pocket on. So I'm not worried about that. So I need one of these linings. And it would be the same if you used like a solid color on the outside and you were putting the pocket on the outside. You would do this pretty much the same way. Okay, so I'm going to lose about 2 inches off the bottom. And I'm going to lose about 3/4 inch to 1 inch off the top. So I want it down lower than that. I don't want it quite all the way to the bottom, and I don't want it all the way at the top either. So I'm going to go, and I want it centered. So let's find the center here. And I know I've got pins here somewhere. And you could mark this any whatever way you want. Sometimes if I'm at the ironing board, I might iron them. Give them a press so I know where the center is. But this will be fine. And then I want to come down probably about 3 inches. So this way I know I'll get it straight because I'm measuring from the top. Yeah, that leaves me a little over 3 inches at the bottom too. So let's fold this in half. I'm going to put that line right on that pin there, which was the middle. There we go. So now I know that's centered and straight. And then I'm just going to pin it in a few spots around. Make sure these are pinned very nicely. You know, I've seen a lot of people, especially the new young sewers, when they pin things, they pin like this. And I'm not sure why. When I was taught to sew, 50 something years ago, 50 years ago, 50 something, I was always taught to pin so that the stitching went across the pins. The pins went across the stitching. And if you needed to, you could go over the pins. Now with all the digital machines and stuff now, you don't really want to go over the pins. And some of these pins that I have here are pretty heavy. So I still try not to go over the pins. I mean, I always have, but I was taught to pin this way so that you could go over. And the kids now, and I call them kids, they're, in their 20s or 30s or whatever, they all pin in the direction they're sewing. And I'm not sure why. Anybody have a comment on that or an idea or a thought? I'm curious about that. So now I'm just going to, and I'm going to back tack. I back tacked here too. I'm going to start on this side. I'm going to back tack. And then I'm going to just stitch very close to the edge, like maybe 1/8 of an inch. I've got quite a bit of fabric up inside there. I did that 1/2 inch seam. So I've got enough fabric in there that I would catch all the layers of the fabric. But I'm going to do about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. I'm going to back tack at the top, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so that is all done, finished. So I have that piece. I have the other piece of the lining, and I am going to be sewing here and here. And again, on the lining, I'm going to leave a spot open at the bottom for turning at the end. It's been a while since I've made one of these, so I might need a little practice, but I remember that. And then I'm going to sew down the sides. I'm going to sew all the way across the bottom of this one. I'm going to sew down the sides and leave a spot open in the middle of the lining for turning. So these are stitched. This one is all the way across, and then this one you can see where I left a little bit of room for when we got a turn. Did use a 1/2 inch seam allowance on both pieces, so they are still the same size. The next step for me is I need to box the corners. So basically what I like to do is I like to go from the seam line. I'm just going to mark that for you here so that you can see it. From this seam line, I like to go in 2 inches. So I've got my little 3.5 inch ruler here, and I'm just going to mark this. I got to stop and think. Yes, that's right. I want to go in 2 inches on each piece. Let me see where that puts me here with the pocket. Because that's going to be where the bottom of, oh, no. Okay, so this is about where my technical difficulties started. So be sure to zoom to the end to see the blooper of what I did wrong there. Right here, my mic was dead, so now we're doing the voiceover. I'm just cutting a 2-inch square out of those bottom corners there so that I can miter those corners. I'm going to cut 2 inches away from the stitching line. And then when I pull the corners like that, those little pieces will nest. And then I'm just going to pin it and then I'll sew across. So I did tear away a little bit of the paper on the edge there so it wouldn't be buried up underneath, so that I could get it off later, because if I buried it inside that seam then I wouldn't have been able to get it off later. So I just got these all pinned, and then I went to the sewing machine and I sewed a 1/2 inch seam allowance there. And there we are. That's all stitched. They're nice and boxy on the bottom. And now we're going to make the straps. So I'm going to fold that up 1/4 inch on one side. And then I'm going to fold that down about 1/3 of the way. And then I'll take that piece and I'll fold it up. I am going to go to the ironing board and press them like that. And there we go. And then I top stitched on the one side and then top stitch the other side to match. Now we're just going to measure 3 inches from the center seam, and that's where we're going to put the straps. I am going to pin them in, and then make sure you don't turn them around. Make sure you have the right side and make sure you don't twist them, and then 3 inches from that side. And then I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to put them in the same spot on this side. And then I'm going to take, and I'm just going to top stitch about 1/4 inch all the way around there so that the seams won't pull. And then I am going to tear all that paper off. I was going to go sit out in the yard and do that, but it was lunchtime. It was 12:37. I was going to go have lunch and then go sit in the yard and do that and get them all torn. Well, that took about, I'd say probably about an hour. Oh my goodness. So as soon as I said I was going to go outside and do this, of course, the rain let loose. So I had to do it in here. And I wanted to do it outside because I figured all these little tiny pieces, if they blew in the yard, they would just compost and it wouldn't be a problem. I'm going to get this cleaned up and then we're going to finish up this bag. Okay, let's get this bag finished. There's still a few of these little teeny tiny pieces, and where I stitched the 1/4 inch seam and then decided I needed a 1/2, some of those still have little bits in there. Honestly, I'm not going to worry about it. So I'm going to turn the bag portion right side out. And then I'm going to lay the handles down so they're flat. And then I'm going to make this be inside out again. I didn't need to turn it if I was turning the bag. This is going to be so stinking cute. So now, right sides together. I just want to slide the bag, the outside, into the inside. And then we are going to match up the side seams first. And because we cut these the same size, and I got to go get more pins. Okay, so because we made these the same size and used the same size seam allowance, they should line up very nicely. So there's that seam. Let's get to the other side seam. Just going to nest those, not really worried about which way they go. Just as long as the top edge is lined up and they're nested properly. So I am going to make sure that the handles are down and out of the way. And then this should just match right up. And you could use clips on this. I just used pins because that's what I have handy. I am going to pin very carefully where that handle is to make sure it doesn't tug out of place. Okay, now we're going to go to the sewing machine. I'm going to sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around. And then I'm going to sew it again a second time just to make sure it's strong, because once I turn it, those handles are going to be pulling on it. And I want to make sure it's nice and strong. So I'm going to go do that. Okay, so then I had turned it right side out through that little opening. I pressed that opening shut and I did a quick top stitch on that. For some reason I missed that record button, so you couldn't see me do that. But I did turn it completely right side out through the opening I had left on the lining. And then I just top stitched along that line. Okay, so now I am going to finish turning this the right way, right side out. And then I'm going to go to the ironing board. And I'm just going to ease that way. And I'm going to press it all the way around. And then I'm going to give it a 1/4 inch top stitch. Just all the way around. And that is going to help, again, secure these handles nice and tight. They've already got several sets of stitches in them, but those top stitches will just help secure them. All right, there it is. That's the front with the pocket. That's the back. The inside with the pocket. I think this came out absolutely adorable, and I am so pleased with it. I'm going to get some pictures outside and finish up my video, and we'll get this up. Thanks so much for joining me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave me a comment, give me a hype, all the fun stuff. I sewed the top here. Oh, so silly. Let me fix that.